Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. So Sark's first scrimmage is in the books this past Saturday. He's had two press conferences since then. We had one today as of this recording, April 13th. So we're going to dive into it. I'm a fan, just like you are. I'm not an insider or anything. So I'm just going to give you my takeaways from everything I've read and seen and heard from Sark himself and just reading between the lines. Before I get to that, I want to say make sure you subscribe, support the channel. We're on our way to 10K. Follow us on all the social medias, but 10K, that's where we're headed. Appreciate everybody along the journey. It's been so fun. I appreciate Stephen McCraw, Henry Gallen for sending me the poster back there to cover the breaker box that some of you guys complain about. Wasn't quite big enough, but I want to throw it up there. It's signed by so many of the guys on the team. And thank you. Thank you for supporting. I can't appreciate y'all. It can't be appreciated enough. And also hit the notification bell at the bottom because Noti Squad, we out here. Anytime I have video drop, you guys are aware of it. Hit us up. Now, Steve Sarkisian, 100 plays, and this is where I want to start. 100 play scrimmage, 9 practices in as of today, but 100 play scrimmage and nobody got injured. I cannot stress how important that aspect alone is, considering what we've been through the last few years and the complaints that you guys have written to me about Coach McKnight. So shout out to Coach Becton. Guys staying healthy. We had a very physical scrimmage, had some ones-on-ones, all sorts of bit, and nobody got hurt. Everybody's able to continue to practice on the team. So that is a win within itself, no doubt about it. Now, presser today, 20-minute presser. They talk for 12 minutes about the quarterbacks. That's the main event. It's Texas. It's a QB controversy. It's a battle. Casey Thompson here, Hudson Card here. Who you got? And they both have their moments. Hudson Card rolls out the ones. I told you, we got the magnifying glass on them. You know, we paying attention to everything out here. And they have their moments. Hudson Card reportedly throws the pick 6 to Josh Thompson. Casey Thompson has a drive where he looked really sharp, leads the team down the field, blah, blah, blah. Take away with it what you want. But the recurring theme there was, and the thing that Steve Sarkisian, I think, is smartly doing, of being direct and succinct with the media, but also using the media as a tool to talk to his players. And he's talking to his quarterbacks because he's saying, hey, I like what I got. They're accurate. Talked about natural accuracy. They both have that. But the robotic aspect when he's offering critique. And he married that robotic critique with they're taking too many sacks. That made perfect sense to me. And shout out to Rod Babers, sent the tweet from Kyle Shanahan, old quote about what does it mean to be robotic? Hey, if I'm a coach, I call a bad play or defense gives us a look that we weren't necessarily prepared for. Left tackle gets beat off the snap. Running back misses his pass pro assignment. What can you do to either make a play, keep us out of a negative play, or, you know, we just survive this down? And I think his message to that is he's talking to the media. That's what I'm looking for my starting quarterback. Because right now, from what I'm reading, it seems like these guys know where they're supposed to go. They're diligent workers. They understand their progressions now. They understand what the offense is trying to do. And Steve Sarkisian is big on stressing not just what to do, but the why of what they're doing it. But when you're hearing that guys are robotic and taking a whole bunch of sacks, it tells me they're trying to be perfect. And that's one thing I can relate to, since that's the position that I used to play, is, you know, when you're trying to run the plays and go through, okay, this, instead of playing quarterback, just ball. Use your gifts, use your instincts, and you marry those two together. I'm not saying you go off script every day and play, but marrying those two together where it can actually take over. That's just going to come with time and reps. And I think sometimes you're going to hear a little bit more positive things like you heard from Casey, where people are surprised at how well he played the scrimmage. Hello, he balled out in the Colorado game when the bright lights were on, and he's been known as starting to develop that reputation as more of a gamer. The bigger the situation, the more he'll rise. But he's also seen a little bit more. He's a little bit more experienced. It's not a surprise that the person that picked off Hudson Card was Josh Thompson, who's been here forever. So Hudson Card, who has big ass talent and this incredible arm we've seen all the videos, he just needs to see a little bit more. So that's why he can still have the chance to win this job outright or make up ground even when the season starts because of that talent and just getting more immersed and comfortable with the offense. And that doesn't just apply to the quarterbacks. That applies to the wide receivers and everybody that's doing their job. Sark is big on saying, hey, if you don't know the offense, it's really hard to put you out there if you don't know what's going on. So I think that's more common sense stuff. But when you look at the skill sets between the two quarterbacks, Casey Thompson and Hudson Card, they're much more closely aligned in terms of, height, speed, skills, everything that they can do than Mac Jones and Tua or Mac Jones and Bryce Young, who were completely different types of quarterbacks. But that creativity of the staff was able to make whoever is back there shine and make them comfortable in whatever they're asking them to do. I think that's incredibly important of whoever will take over. But whoever will take over, because of how similar they are, it's going to be who has those native instincts to not only create, but also sometimes instinctively, like we saw from Mac Jones, to get us in a good situation as a game manager. Not game manager in the negative sense, but game manager in the sense of we can keep the drive going because you did something cerebral, right? So I think that's really, really, really important to highlight. Now, in terms of the staff changes, who's benefited? Because you hear all these names being thrown out there, and Jordan Whittington continues to just lead the group in terms of all the positives. And I think when I say lead the group, Bijan Robinson is the best player on the team. Let's not get any of this confused, okay? And he looked the part. You look at the brothers' highlight, the highlight videos they put out there. Sark talked about low center of gravity. Bijan looks like he's trying to be the best running back in the country. He looked like he's going for the dope, period. But in terms of who's had the most transformative spring because of staff change, I would say Jordan Whittington, no doubt about it. And right behind him is Roschon Johnson. And people forget Roschon was hurt last year. He played hurt. Didn't really miss much time, but he played hurt. And he was playing special teams too. But this is the same brother who has a quarterback his freshman year, moved over, shout out to Stan Drayton. And everybody was saying he should have been RB1 and got more touches then. And I understand we don't want to get in the way of going back by committee again and timeshare and all this type of stuff. But hey, when you have a quarterback that also had 91 design runs last year, and the coach says we're not in the quarterback run business anymore, well, that's a whole bunch of touches that now get reallocated to some of the players that you want toting the rock. And I think that's critical because you're also talking about short yardage situations, which is something that we've, shout out to Joe Cook, who asked that question, I think, in today's presser, where we've kind of laid our hat in those situations. That's something where we need, and if there's anything we can critique Bijan Robinson on, being that short yardage back and picking up some of those dirty yards. We know he can break long runs. We know he can break big runs. But right now, I still put my faith in Roschon Johnson in some of those short yardage situations. And I think as Bijan becomes that complete, dynamic, wonderkin of a back, that's where he'll have to show some improvement. And that also goes in conjunction with the offensive line as well and playing at the highest level they possibly can under Kyle Flood. We know that some guys are out. They're still working around with what combinations they want to tackle. That's probably also impacting some of the things they're seeing out of the quarterback and the amount of sacks the quarterback's taking. The other thing is Jacoby Jones and Ray Thornton are kicking their ass. So all of these things being factored in, kind of play into some of the struggles I think we're seeing with the offensive line. But those things aren't, they're not long-term issues. The wide receiver, thing where, you're hearing Jordan Whittington's name, they're saying, oh, Joshua Moore is coming along. You're hearing some positive things today about Marcus Washington and Kelvontae Dixon, which I'm encouraged to hear. But, hey, Jake Smith's out. Troy O'Meara is coming. There's a lot of uncertainty around the wide receivers, which also leads me to this, like the underrated guys. You're talking about the tight ends. Because if the wide receivers can come along with more reps and more time, just like we're talking about the quarterbacks, then we'll be fine. But the other thing that And the biggest quote that Sark said today, and I know I'm drinking the Kool-Aid right now, but let me go. I'm a Texas fan. The more things we can do well, the harder we are to stop. And that sounds like a very, very simple quote, but it's very, very important because in the old regime, we pigeonholed people. Not only did we pigeonhole people, we got stuck in certain personnel groupings and certain tendencies. And the more things we can do well, I'm not saying throwing a whole bunch of crap against the wall. We come out one series, we go empty, and we come out the next series, we're in 21 personnel. We come out the next series, we're in 11 personnel, and then we go back to empty. Like we're jumping all over the place. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you have proper versatility and you can jump around because you're good at those things and because the people in those respective position groups are coached up, well, now we're in business. Now, when we play a TCU who plays completely different defense from a West Virginia who plays different from a Texas Tech, you can mix around some of those personnel groupings and not get flustered or out of sorts in your game planning and what you're asking your players to execute because you can play a myriad of ways. You look at Nick Saban last year when he was talking about, hey, I'm playing Notre Dame. I can't sit in my nickel defense. This applies on both sides of the ball. I can't sit in nickel. I got to go back and put some more linebackers in the game. But my guys, when I ask them to do that, they're ready to play. However I need to play it, we're ready to go. Again, people who were going back to people that have benefited. Anthony Cook, that's somebody else we need to touch on because his name still popping up. Seems to be a new man on and off the field under this coaching regime. And I'm really, really happy for this brother. Somebody I've rooted for since we got him out of Lamar a few years ago. And because the corners are, we're getting good, hearing good things about the corners, whether it's Josh Thompson, whether it's Deshaun Jameson or Dunn. So even Keaton Crawford you're hearing about, right? And so getting that out of Anthony Cook, pushing Chris Attamore pushing Anthony Cook. I think you're hearing a lot of guys push people. It may be coach speak to some of you about the running back thing with Roschon Johnson. I don't mind if Roschon is pushing Bijan to be an even better running back. That's all positive for Texas. You look at the quarterback thing. We need them both. Trevor Lawrence missed a game with COVID last year. What happens? Somebody transfers out. They're not ready to play. Then what? So you need them both. That's why all the people that are like pick one with the quarterback thing, I'm like, we need both ready to play. I need two starters. Essentially, because it's not even just injuries anymore. It's also COVID we got to deal with. So factoring all that in, people got to be ready to play. I am really, really encouraged really by the defensive line. I mentioned Ray Thornton, Jacoby Jones, what they're doing on the edges. We know we have mainstays in Keandre Coburn. We know we have a future superstar in Alfred Collins. They're at 3 tech. But then when you look at Ojimo, Tavondre Sweat, who's out this spring, he'll be back. Vernon Broughton. If that's my second group, that's nasty. That's nasty. Like, you have those dudes coming in like that we are building something there on the defensive line. That is encouraging. Now behind them, the big storyline last week, Tyler Owens. Hey, I want to be next to DeMarvin Overshawn coming to the box. Cool. Linebacker, I was excited. But we have to have patience with it because this leads me to my next underrated guy. We have to have patience with it because my next underrated guy isn't necessarily Tyler Owens. It's actually David Benda because Tyler Owens, I'm excited, and I'm glad they're cross-training him. I don't like just outright moving somebody into a room and forget everything you just saw because we do need him in case BJ Foster, who has had injury concerns, we need him ready to play a boundary. So I'm not – Tyler Owens needs to be moving back and forth, and the more you can get him on the field and leverage him at different positions, the better. But it will take time, just like we saw with DeMarvin Overshown, with Coleman Hutzler last year, to learn that position. And it's a lot more nuanced than just size and speed or speed and physicality. It's a lot more nuanced to playing the linebacker position. But I'm encouraged by that. But the guy I'm even really more excited about is David Benda, because people don't talk about him enough. Yet I see the guy in the video blowing people up in the video they put out on Twitter. I see him being called out by name by the head coach. I know what he was doing when he had to fill in for Juwan Mitchell. I see the abilities that he's already shown in coverage. I see the fact that he's almost as fast as DeMarvin Overshown himself. And people don't talk about David Benda's speed. That brother's underrated. And I think he is somebody who will surprise these Nigerian brothers who have come through. I was early on the Joseph Osai train a couple years ago. For those of you who were here on the channel, I was the only person beating the drum on Joseph Osai until he finally blew up and he was household name. I'm here to say that about David Benda as well, in terms of what I'm seeing in terms of his progression. I was a big Coleman Hutzler fan. I'm a big Jeff Choate fan in terms of what he's bringing to our linebacking group. And I think the sky's the limit for what those guys can develop into. I'm not saying he's going to be, first team All-American or anything like that, like Osai was, but I think you probably are getting an upgrade at this point with Jawan Mitchell hitting the portal. No disrespect to that brother. I wish him the best of luck, but I think you've upgraded there as a group with him getting all those reps. So y'all let me know anything else you want to touch on from this spring recap. K Brewer getting his weight down, that tight end group. And I know a lot of people were, I want to see Jared Wiley play. And me too. Jared Wiley, tight end 1. I tweeted that before. But hey, clean slate, new staff, guys getting their weight right, getting their body types right. See, even Chris Adamore trying to fix his body, looks fantastic. Both sides of the ball. K Brewer looks like, sounds like, and I think he was one of the guys that was a victim of the coaches of the previous regime asking him to do things that are not even in his wheelhouse. And we as fans looked at it as like, oh, get him out of there, right? In terms of putting him in positions to do the things that he is really, really good at, because he was a very good football player coming out of Lake Travis a few years ago. And I hope he can finish at Texas the right way. And with the wide receivers, if they come on a little slower, we might be seeing a lot of 12 personnel with him and Jared Wiley on the field, especially if we're hammering home Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson. Heck, you might even see Roshan Johnson more 21 personnel, having them both on the field, because if Roshan's part of your best 11, put him out there. Put him out there. This is the time of the year where you figure all that stuff out. And I think leading up until the 24th, when we have the orange-white scrimmage, we're really going to see kind of a mix of some of those personnel. I know that there'll be vanilla at the spring game, no doubt about that. But in terms of where people are utilized and not pigeonholing people anymore, and people having real opportunity to showcase their gifts in different positions, some people being cross-trained, I think this is just a tremendous opportunity. Like I said before, more collabs coming. Tran and I were actually going to be doing a NFL draft video for our Longhorns. Lando and I will be doing part 2 of our Dallas Cowboys draft series and more collaboration. So really excited for the growth of the channel. Y'all help get us to 10K. I love you guys so much. Remember, Horns always up.